Good morning. Dylan with Huntsville Guns. I wanted to take a minute here while the shop is quiet this morning to cover a project that came across my bench yesterday. Kind of an unusual request from a customer, and I figured you guys would get some enjoyment out of it. The customer is a big World War II fan and has a pretty extensive World War II firearms collection. In the process of collecting, he's come up with pretty significant amount of parts guns, buys a lot of Carcanos and gets 2 or 3 good ones and a bunch of junk in the lot. So what he has envisioned and asked that I come up with a game plan and help him with is taking an Arisaka Type 99 action and marrying it to a Chinese SKS barrel, 7.62x39. Originally, the Type 99 is in Japanese 7.7 caliber, slightly larger than the 310, 311 diameter of 7.62x39. A little bit different barrel specs, a little bit longer barrel, but in his collecting, he has come up with enough parts, I think, to make a complete firearm out of, and something that you don't see every day. For the purist out there, I understand that this is an intact mummed receiver, and that may hurt some people's feelings. However, this was an action that was purchased. There was no barrel included with it, so it has already lost its collector's value. It's actually already been messed with and sporterized. The back of the tang for the trigger guard is missing, so it is not a complete, what we would consider a collectible firearm because of that. It's not serial number matching. It's not a super desirable manufacturer location or low serial number or anything of that nature. Pretty good candidate for what I think this project is. So the goal and the direction for what I'd like to do with this project, like I said, is the 99 receiver, which has a strange oddball, like almost 17 threads per inch. For the barrel. It's kind of an unusual thread pitch in the machining world. There's not a lot of machines, lathes specifically, that can cut that thread pitch. I'm not entirely sure how they were cut during the war for these actions, but it's not something that my machine can duplicate. So the plan that I've come up with to marry the barrel to the action is to take an original Arisaka 99 barrel and do what we call a stub build. So take the chamber end of the barrel right here at this transition line and remove said barrel, discard the original, and then turn down the interior or the exterior threads off of the SKS barrel, thread the interior portion of the chamber end of that barrel, marry those two together, and then use a Savage style lock nut on the front of it. Once those are head spaced and set, then turning that lock nut to match the original contour. It's got this taper right here in front of the chamber area. And so the thought process behind doing that is, one, the thread pitch on the receiver is unobtainium. I don't know if you could, I really don't know of a good option for cutting exterior threads on a barrel, even if you were starting with a virgin barrel blank. To match the thread pitch that's in these guns. It's not something that you run across, and the lathe that I use isn't capable of cutting that thread pitch. So also the Type 99 uses a similar bolt nose and extractor setup to some of the Mausers. So the bolt nose is actually extended and chambers into the nose of the barrel. Like I said, it's very similar to like Yugo Mauser. So here's a Yugo Mauser bolt next to the Type 99 bolt. The extractor is almost identical. The bolt nose is almost identical. The ejector setup is very similar. And so this makes for a little additional work when you're threading chamber in for a receiver. So there's this additional cut, see if I can catch the light, in the sidewall. And so we'll lop this off, thread the interior and the exterior, thread them together, lock it, and then it'll have to be indexed and this area relieved from this barrel so the bolt will still chamber. The feed ramp shape on the Arisaka barrel and original receiver is a functional design. It works for the 7.7. There's no reason it won't work for 7.62x39. Surprisingly, the 7.62x39 chambers into the magazine of the Type 99, and the bolt will feed from magazine. So there's not a lot of magazine modification that needs to take place. We'll most likely end up shimming the back of the follower just to shorten that magazine spacing up a little bit. The SKS barrel, why? For one, there's some historical examples. The Chinese did a bunch of Type 38 conversions to 7.62x39. There's a lot of information and speculation and kind of information that points to them using SKS barrels in the process. Two, these barrels are super cheap and plentiful. It's in a good caliber. It's actually a chrome-lined barrel, and the bore on this one is in fantastic shape. There's a little bit of pitting on the chamber end on the exterior, but I'm going to turn all of that off anyway, so it doesn't matter. Sarco, they may still have them, but at some point in the recent past, Sarco had a bunch of Chinese barreled receivers, and I want to say they were like $79 or $89. You could buy them all day, cheaper than you can buy a barrel blank for. Two, there's a bit of a cool factor there, right? So a World War II gun in hard to find, kind of getting expensive caliber to shoot the 7.7 that would be rechambered using arguably similar practice to what would have been done in, say, the 50s. In a caliber that's much more plentiful. Surplus ammo is still all over the market. So the overall concept is a shorter barreled Type 99 in 7.62x39 with as many original Arisaka parts as possible. There are a few exceptions. The customer would like to cut down an original 99 stock and give it the same contour and profile as the 99 using the same barrel band up front rather than doing the Arisaka 38 conversion, which is what the Chinese used. And I think there were a couple of Type 30s in there as well. So the overall appeal or an homage to a Type 99 in a slightly shorter, almost carbine-length platform. The SKS barrel does have a gas port drilled in it already, and because it is drilled at an angle instead of directly perpendicular to the bore, we'll probably have to make a band to fit over that just to block off the gas system. I'll silver solder that in place and then inlet the stock when we're installing to accommodate for that little bit extra material. You won't see it from the exterior. So the SKS barrel is actually a smaller diameter. It is tapered, but it's a smaller diameter overall than the Arisaka barrel. And so like rear sights and front sights are going to have to be modified or a copy made to match the original. I think honestly what I'll end up doing is probably split like the rear barrel band, split it down the middle, compress it to fit the OD of the SKS barrel, and then TIG that back together. The sight for the Type 99, give me 1 second, there's a couple different versions, depends on when they were made during the war effort. So the sight is a folding blade. Black t-shirt wasn't a good choice today, obviously. So blade, and this is actually an aircraft sight. It's just missing the wings off of it, pretty common. The delineations on this are not going to match the 7.7 and the 7.62x39. Ballistically, pretty different. So we're going to have to cross that bridge when we get there. As far as the threads on the front of the barrel, I suggested leaving them, doing a thread protector. So in the future, if the customer decided he wanted to run some kind of Type 59 SKS muzzle device, or if he wanted to utilize the threads in the future, let's not shorten the barrel anymore by getting rid of them. Let's not change the profile because we already have a thinner barrel than we are looking at. We did toy with the idea of a Franken build. Envision, if you will, Viet Cong capture rifle. I have an M1 carbine stocked, Mosin Nagant, that was a war bring back. Kind of envision, if you will, something that was made in the jungle in a foxhole or a tunnel somewhere. And so we talked about the idea of using like a 30 carbine or an M1 carbine, flash hider. We've kind of played with a couple of different ideas of what to make the overall finished product look like. Nothing has been nailed down to this point. But like I said, just kind of a cool build that came across the bench. Not something that I'm going to jump into today. We'll have a couple conversations, the customer and I, just to get a little more direction from him, what the finished overall product should look like in his eyes, and then come up with a game plan on how to make that work. Comment down below if you've seen something like this done in the past. I do a fair bit of mill certs. I do a lot of work on either conservation or replacing parts that are broken or missing, but I don't do a lot of marriages of two different firearms. I don't do a lot with kind of the, what's the term I want to use? Frankenstein builds, for lack of a better word. You know, things that are off the beaten path. The majority of what I see come through the door, like I said, is modern production or mill cert, and it's replacing parts and repairing damage. It's not a lot of commissioned one-off builds. If this is something you've seen or something similar to it, I'd love to hear more about the details. Drop some comments down below. Keep an eye out in the future for videos on this build. We'll probably do it in a couple of stages. I do have a full-time workload of other firearms that come in, and this is not an immediate priority for the customer, so we'll just work on it as we have some free time. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me this morning. Have a great day.